Today on the John Boat Journal, I battle wind, lightning, and flooding, all in the pursuit of catching redfish on the fly.
Oh, got him. Good shot. Oh yeah.
Occasionally, when I travel very long distances from home to fish, the weather has been known to turn bad on me. And when I say turn bad, I'm not talking about an inconvenience. I mean the kind of weather that can kill you. On a tarpon fishing trip in Mexico back in the early 90s, I walked through our hotel lobby one morning past an easel that had a map of the part of Mexico I was in, with the current track of a hurricane showing that if it maintained its course, was heading directly at us. By the time we got back to the hotel that evening, the hurricane had completely changed course and they had taken down the map. I got lucky that trip, but on other trips I wasn't so lucky. On 2 separate occasions, I've been trout fishing in Colorado and was caught in a blizzard. The first one was a record setter. 74 inches of snow fell not too far from where we were staying, and according to the locals, we got dumped on. Interstate 70 was closed for several days while they set off dynamite to deter avalanches. The National Guard was bringing food and fuel to hundreds of stranded drivers to keep their vehicles running to avoid freezing to death. I didn't have it too bad though. I arrived the day before the blizzard hit and stayed all week, long enough for them to get the roads opened back up. I caught trout every day through the blizzard, but I might have escaped death by about 30 seconds. After a day of fishing, I stopped at a deserted gas station to fill up. There wasn't many people even out on the roads. After I filled up, I pulled back onto the road when I heard a loud crash. The awning where I had just finished getting gas had collapsed onto the pumps. Then there was a trip to Florida in which a record amount of rain fell on Naples while we were out snook fishing. It flooded a good portion of Naples and Fort Myers. The rain didn't affect us too much, but the lightning sent us running for cover. I didn't know it at the time, but this trip was going to involve flooding and a whole lot of running for cover. I guess lightning is a big part of being a fisherman, and like a guide in the Florida Keys once told me, any day I'm not killed by lightning is a good day. I'm in Port Mansfield on my way to the boat ramp. The weather looks pretty shaky this morning. There's a lot of rain and a few thunderstorms floating around out according to the radar, and you can see them out here. But looks like there might be a little break in the weather, so we're going to go throw the boat in the water and run around out there and see what we can find. The weather was still looking pretty ominous, so I decided to stay close to port. I ran out east to a chain of spoil islands where I could get out pretty quickly and back to the marina if the weather got ugly. I really wanted to pole the boat so I could be in the boat if I needed to make a fast exit, and because I just really wanted to fish from the boat. But it wasn't going to happen today. Wind's really up today, and we got pretty much overcast skies, so I can't hardly see anything, so that's pretty much going to rule out poling the boat. I can't really pole the boat and fish by myself with the wind this high. So we're going to be stuck with wade fishing, which is okay, it's not bad. The problem with wade fishing, it's really hard to video and wade fish and do it right, so we're going to give it a try though. I got lucky and found some fish tailing and cruising around with their backs out of the water, which made them easy to see in the low light. A shrimp fly did the trick on them. I caught a few redfish and was still seeing fish on the shallow flat when I began to hear thunder and see flashes of lightning. So I decided to head back to port and see what the weather was going to do from the safety of my hotel room. I managed to get the boat on the trailer and get back to my hotel room just as the bottom fell out. The next morning, I was back out east again, wading the backside of some spoil islands. I was seeing a lot of sheep's head tailing, a fish I've been trying to catch on a fly rod for 20 years. So I decided to spend some time seriously trying to catch one. A small storm popped up on me, and I didn't even have time to get back to the boat, much less to the marina, so I waded up to one of the islands and hunkered down to wait for things to blow over. I was watching a shorebird called a willet trying to hunker down with his back to the rain, same as me, when I noticed something moving down the shoreline. Just a ripple of a wake at first, then I could see the distinctive bars along the side. A sheep's head. Well, I just caught a sheep's head on a fly rod. I've been trying to do that for about 20 years now. I never could figure out how to do it, but I got him this time. I didn't get any video of it because I was afraid I was gonna, in the process of trying to set up my tripod and my camera, I'd lose him. So I just went ahead and landed him. But I did get photographs of him, so he counts. But I figured out, I think, the trick is to drop a fly out in front of him. In this case, I was using a little green crab fly that I tie. Drop that out in front of him, let it get his attention, lay it on the bottom, and then don't move it. If he swims over to it and sticks his nose down on it, don't move it. Like with a redfish, whenever a redfish puts his nose on a fly, you want to strip it and kind of trigger him to take it. But it seems like with a sheep's head, the trick is to drop it in front of him and then don't move it. Just let it lay on the bottom and let him swim over and pick the thing up. And that's what I did. I also got rained on for about 30 minutes on my way back to the boat. So I'm soaking wet, I'm tired, but I am happy. Finally. I was considering staying out and fishing a while longer, but my phone started pinging with weather alerts. I jumped in the boat and started racing for port, but I didn't quite make it in time. It was a rough ride back, and the lightning was pretty scary. I did make it back to the hotel in one piece, and I watched it rain hard the rest of the day. I talked to my dad on the phone that evening, and he told me that the flooding in the valley was making national news.
More than a foot of rain triggering flash floods, submerging vast areas along Interstate 2 from McAllen to Mercedes, Texas.
Yes, we woke up, it was around 3 in the morning, and we saw outside that everything was flooded, everything. Rain and it keep on coming, and I'm scared.
All right, guys. This just in, Governor Greg Abbott issuing a disaster declaration for several counties in South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley due to this extreme flooding. The governor tweeting the state will provide all assistance needed, and right now members of the San Antonio Fire Department are providing assistance in the valley.
The town the First Lady visited today, McAllen, Texas, is among many of the Texas Gulf Coast towns that have been flooded by heavy rain this week. A number of people have been rescued from their homes and cars. The governor today declared disasters in 5 counties. Here's Courtney Zabowski.
Days of heavy downpours turned these homes in McAllen, Texas into islands surrounded by floodwaters. Emergency crews used everything they had, boats and heavy construction trucks, to rescue the stranded.
It's going to take much longer to recover. As you can see, this neighborhood can't take much more rain, but more rain is predicted tonight. Jeff, the South Texas region should start drying out tomorrow.
The storm's finally backed off enough to get out without it being completely dangerous. They got a ton of rain down here. The reports I saw was up to 14 inches down here in the valley. A lot of the cities around here have got some serious flooding. Houses underwater and businesses underwater. Pretty bad deal. But finally got up here up north where I wanted to go. I've been afraid to the last couple of days because the storm's coming in and out, but it finally laid off enough that I felt reasonably comfortable to run up here. The problem is we still got the overcast skies, and there's too much wind to really pull the boat by myself, so I'm gonna wait a couple of shorelines that they've got pretty firm bottom, pretty good weighting, and the tide up here is really high today. A lot of the places I normally fish back in this tidal lake are underwater. Just too much water to even see fish in, particularly without any sunlight. So what I'm gonna do is wait a shoreline and hope the fish cooperate and cruise up along the edge of that shoreline with their back out of the water and or tail end or something, if I can just see something. They're gonna have to work with me though, because I can't see good enough to do it without them helping me. So I'm gonna get on the shoreline over here and see if I can't spot something to cast a shrimp fly at. We'll see how it goes. And the fish did cooperate, cruising right up against the bank, swimming right towards me. As long as they stayed tight to the bank, they were very easy to see. I tied on a small olive-colored crab fly, and the fish pounced on it without hesitation. I felt very fortunate to be having this much luck, considering how much the conditions were against me. I also felt a little guilty that things were going so well for me when things were going so badly for other people in the valley. Those things were out of my control, and each time I hooked a fish, I said a little prayer that those people would get the help they needed, just as I was getting the help I needed from the fish. It's my last day to fish, and finally I can see the sun coming up. It's rained pretty much the last 5 days straight. I've got rained on every day. Every time I've got in the boat, I've got rained on. Maybe today, there's still a little bit of cloud cover up there, but maybe that'll clear out. Maybe today we'll actually get some sunlight and can see some things. Wind's down right now, so it's pretty nice. It's steamy, but God, it's so nice to see the sun finally. So I'm fixing to put the boat in the water and run back up north again and see if there's any fish that want to eat a shrimp or a crab fly. After landing a redfish almost immediately, I decided it was time to get back in the boat and try catching one poling myself. The wind was still down, and the fish were right along the shoreline where I caught them the day before. The trick to catching one while poling is to judge how close you need to position the boat to the fish before staking out. Too far out, and you won't be able to reach him. Too close, and you run the risk of spooking him. But if you get it just right, and the fish maintains his course and speed, and you don't fall trying to get from the poling platform to the casting stool, or drop your rod overboard, and the fish doesn't spook when you raise your rod to cast, then good things can happen. Lots of birds working the shoreline, so after finally boating one on the pole, I decided to use a technique I call walking the boat. I use a small anchor on a short line tied to the front of the boat. I position the anchor and a rod on the front where I can reach them easily without looking. Then I wade, just like normal, except with the boat in tow. When I spot a fish, I can easily slip the anchor in the water, grab the rod, and go after the fish. The boat will stay right where I left it. With camera, boga grips, pliers to remove hooks, and a cooler full of ice cold drinks right there with me. Works the same way if I want to stop and shoot egrets catching their share of shrimp. I figured I had just enough time to eat a quick lunch. Then I wanted to try to catch one more fish off the pole before it was time to call it a trip. Spam sandwiches are something I never eat at home. I don't know if it's the sun and salt water or just how hungry you get doing this kind of fishing, but they are delicious out there. Time was running short, and I really wanted to catch one more fish off the pole. I had a long boat ride back to port and a lot of work to do to get everything ready to make the 600-mile drive back home the next morning. The only problem was I wasn't seeing anything. Then I spotted what I thought were two big mullet cruising along just ahead of me. I watched them for a minute, then realized it was two small redfish. Very small redfish, but I wasn't picky about that. They were still redfish and I wanted one. Luckily, they kept cruising right out in front of me, directly away from me, at about the same speed I was drifting. I dropped the little crab fly a couple of feet out in front of them. The first fish seemed annoyed by the fly, but the second one swam over, dropped his nose, and sucked the fly off the bottom. It was one of the smallest redfish I've ever caught on a fly, maybe a couple of pounds, but it made my whole day. To catch one at this spot, this late in the afternoon, made everything seem right in my world. But in all the excitement of getting a chance at one last fish, I forgot to lock the tripod down. Yep, it was definitely time to head home.